In this episode, I talked to producer Jaime about her two presentations at PodfestExpo 2023, why you should consider joining an independent podcast network, and using social shares to increase your audience engagement. Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox back for another episode, and I'm thrilled today to have producer Jaime with us. If you think I'm excited, just wait till you see her. Jaime, first of all, welcome and thank you so much for taking the time to visit with me today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me and for doing this wonderful project ahead of Podfest. This is going to be such a great conference. I'm so excited.
What is your role in podcasting today, recognizing you've had several roles and that continues to change?
Yeah, so I've been in this since 2014. So you say the truth. My career in podcasting has certainly evolved, but currently I am the founder, president, and executive producer of Flintstone Media. It's a podcast production house and consultancy firm. And I'm also the owner of the Florida Podcast Network. So that's a collection of Florida focused shows. So on Flintstone Media, I have a team of 5 wonderfully incredible folks who help me produce all of those shows. So we produce about 60 independent podcasts. And then, of course, we have the Florida Podcast Network. And then part of that overall umbrella under Flintstone Media, we also provide production support for the horse radio networks, 20 to 30 different shows. And then we have a whole bunch of other wonderful clients who just look to me for consultation and coaching and those kinds of things. So that's me in a nutshell. I'm also hosting 3 different shows now. One is my solo show that is my give back to the industry because it's given me so much. I want to help people get their show started off on the right foot. So podcasting your brand is my solo show. And then I co-host a show on entrepreneurship and building your expertise through connections. That's through the Owl podcast, so with 2 W's and 2 L's. And then, of course, I co-host the Podfest podcast, the official podcast from the Podfest Multimedia Expo, and I co-host that with Glenn the Geek from Horse Radio Network. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell. It's a mouthful.
So, Jaime, could you tell us, maybe give us a teaser or two of the presentations or events you're speaking at Podfest Expo 2023?
Sure. So I'm really excited. So I'm been asked to be on 2 different panels, which I love panels because what we do is you get a different perspective from everybody on there. So I'm really excited. So the 2 panels that I'm on, they're both on Friday. One's in the morning at 10 and the other one's just after lunch at 1:15. And so the one at 10 o'clock is the Power Independent Podcast Networks. And so that is, of course, I own the Florida Podcast Network. I'm also the manager of the Horse Radio Network. I launched the Wedding Biz Network. So it's all about how those being involved in a network can really help propel your podcasting, your career forward, and your podcast growth. And then also the afternoon talk is growing your podcast through the power of social audio. And this one I'm especially excited for because a very special woman is leading up this panel. Her name is Jody Krangle, and she and I have become friends over the last maybe 2 years, I guess now, over a social audio app, Clubhouse. And through meeting her in Clubhouse, she became the voice of the intro for the Podfest podcast. So she's there on every episode. If you've heard the show, you've heard her voice. And so I'm really excited to explore how much social audio has really impacted the opportunity and the growth patterns for podcasters today. So those are the 2.
So, for the audio listeners to this podcast, I'm recording this video, and I have to tell you, I am so fired up to hear your panels after listening to you. And if anyone's listening to this, I hope you'll take the opportunity to meet Jaime at Podfest Expo. She is one of the most infectiously enthusiastic persons
Aw,
I have. Plus, she knows her stuff. So when you
thank
get that
you.
combination, it's really hard to be beat. But
Thank you.
I'm always interested, Jaime, in talking to people like yourself and perhaps a little bit like me. We've been in this field for some time, yet we still just thrive at Podfest Expo. So, what do you hope to get out of the
Mhm.
event this year?
Oh my gosh, that is also something that just as my career has evolved, what I get out of Podfest Expo has also evolved. And so right now, this year, I'm going to take care of it this afternoon. I haven't done it yet, but it will be official as of this afternoon. I'm so excited to finally contribute, finally in a very direct way, to the Pay It Forward program, which you are very familiar with, Tom. If you don't mind my calling you out, you provided, I think it was 50 Pay It Forward tickets last year. It was phenomenal. I was a Pay It Forward ticket baby, the first ever at Podfest. I got the first ever. So this has been a lifelong dream for me to contribute that way. So I'm going to be getting some pay it forward tickets for some folks, deserving attendees, so they can make it as well this year. But also, I'm just looking forward to meeting so many people, finding out about the pro track, meeting so many other podcasters who are really doing this as their full-time career, learning everything. I'm a big believer you never stop learning. So that's what I want to do, is just absorb and then talk to people about the course that I'm creating, that I'm hoping will be mostly in the works by the time I get to Podfest, and seeing if gauging the interest, seeing what else that I could be adding into it. So that's what I'm looking forward to, is just connecting with people, seeing my friends again, and enjoying a Podfest like we haven't truly gotten to enjoy one since the pandemic. So I'm just excited on all things. You're right. I'm excited.
Jamie, unfortunately, we're near the end of our time for this episode. But before we
Sure.
leave, if anyone wanted to find out more information about what you're doing in the podcast world, what would be the best place for them to go?
Sure. So if you go to my main website, it's called flintstonemedia.com, like the Flintstones, but there's no S at the end. It's just flintstonemedia.com, and then /JAIME. You can find out a whole bunch of information about me. You can find me online at Flintstone Media, on social media at Flintstone Media, or as Producer Jaime.
Jamie, I'm greatly looking forward to reconnecting with you in now a couple of weeks, and I hope others will take the opportunity to meet you at Podfest Expo. Thanks so much for taking the time to visit with me today.
Thank you, Tom.
This is Tom Fox again. I hope you will join me at Podfest Expo 2023, January 25 to 29 in Orlando. You can get more information at podfestexpo.com. Podfest Expo is the sponsor of this podcast series.